Shazam arguably tells the most compelling story within the entirety of the DCEU. The only other movie that has a story that's just as concise as Shazam is Wonder Woman. Even then, due to the third act being hit or miss, this already puts Shazam objectively above Wonder Woman despite my love for that movie. Shazam's heartfelt story about Billy Batson learning how to become a superhero doesn't get bogged down by any slow scenes, doesn't get interrupted by any scenes that shouldn't be there, and honestly, the only weak thing about Shazam may be the villain of this movie. Even then, Sivana's storyline about becoming obsessed with trying to get back to the Rock of Eternity after being kicked out because he wasn't good enough to be Shazam makes complete sense. Combine that with hilarious scenes and Zachary Levi's amazing chemistry with the entire cast of Shazam, it's a recipe for success. Before we discuss why Shazam's a top tier DCEU movie, I'm your host, Justin, otherwise known as IDontBeatGames, and I'm here to bring that DCEU content right to your monitors. Shazam is easily the most Marvel-like movie in the entirety of the DCEU, and that's obviously not a bad thing. It has the lighthearted tone that most MCU viewers are used to, it tells the most concise story, and more importantly, it has an actual likable superhero. Shazam does a great job at telling a story filled with a few emotional scenes that are actually earned while also entertaining us the whole way through. Anytime Zachary Levi's on screen, there was an instant smile on my face because he does such a good job at nailing that childlike wonder. On top of this, the chemistry between him and Freddy, one of the child actors and main characters of the movie, is also shockingly good. It doesn't feel unbelievable or like there's a whole lot more that can be done to enhance the connection between those two. Don't get me wrong, it's no Tony Stark and Peter Parker, but it's still great and it's still absolutely enjoyable. The beauty of Shazam is that almost any one of us can picture ourselves in a similar situation as Billy Batson, where we magically get superpowers bestowed upon us. Shazam almost puts you in that mindset where you're watching the movie and thinking, I wonder what I would do if I got superpowers as a kid. Another nice touch to Shazam is the idea of centering the movie around the Christmas season. Two big themes in Shazam are family and acceptance. Shazam manages to balance showing us these two themes from two different perspectives without making it overly dramatic or boring. On one hand, you have Billy Batson, this young foster kid who's simply looking for his mom and has been in and out of foster homes. He's not in and out of these homes because they're awful, they even tell us that it's him doing it on purpose. Billy's then accepted into this very loving family that puts their all into trying to get Billy to feel accepted. It takes him a while, but eventually Billy finds his place in that family, while on the other hand, they show us Sivana's perspective. Sivana's childhood was clearly traumatic for him, and it's not just because of him getting denied at the Rock of Eternity. I mean, that's part of it, don't get me wrong, but it's also due to the fact that his family is clearly toxic. In the beginning of the movie, we're clearly shown this awfully toxic environment to the point where a car accident happens, and he's blamed for that when they were yelling at him for almost no reason. Sivana's family legitimately sucks, man. This is why I love Shazam so much. It almost feels entirely separate from the DCEU, even with the Easter eggs such as the Batarang. This is the first DCEU movie where you can tell that they legitimately learned from their mistakes. From Man of Steel to Batman v Superman to Suicide Squad, there were so many flaws in these movies. Don't get me wrong, I do adore Aquaman, which if you haven't seen my video on that, you should check it out. However, Aquaman still has a few flaws that lowers the potential of the movie itself. Shazam's goal of covering the same themes from both a positive and negative perspective while having a ton of entertaining moments gets achieved. I'd understand if someone were to say that the child actors weren't all that amazing, but even with that, it's just kids being kids. Those kids just being kids literally encapsulate Shazam as a whole, and to me, it doesn't take too much away from all of the amazing moments that Shazam does have. Mac Miller said it best, we're just some motherfucking kids. We love and miss you, Mac. Anyway, the dynamic between Billy and Freddy is something that I wasn't sure I'd like going back into Shazam. Back when I first saw Shazam, I actually thought this dynamic was annoying, and things were being just slightly exaggerated between the two of them. However, going back into Shazam, it's clear as day that I missed the fact that Freddy was living through Billy when he got his powers. All of those funny scenes where Zachary Levi was trying to figure out his powers, clearly being a dork and having fun, Freddy was living through him. It actually makes sense considering Freddy's disabled. I'm actually upset at myself for not realizing this when I first watched Shazam. Despite this though, I think the biggest highlight is the fact that it works when both Kid Billy and Zachary Levi are on screen. The chemistry between all three of them somehow just works, even if Zachary does carry the dynamic a bit when he's on screen. The reason why I enjoy the chemistry between Freddy and Billy, well, Zachary Levi, is that even in one of the most important scenes in Shazam, the chemistry still feels real. When Shazam saves a bunch of people from a bus that literally tilts over a bridge, he sort of brags about it. In that very moment, the movie manages to show us exactly what Freddy is. He's Shazam's moral compass. He calls him out right then and there, letting Billy know that he hasn't even been heroic. He hasn't done what a superhero is supposed to do. He's done nothing but make people pay him and take photos with him because he hasn't done the necessary job of figuring out what his powers are so he can be a good superhero. More importantly though, he tells Billy right to his face that he wishes he was him. He wishes he can be that superhero so he can do the things that Billy was failing to do. It's such a raw scene and showcases how badly Freddy lives through Billy as he tries to show Billy how to be a hero. This scene alone shows why Shazam is such a good movie and shows how to do things right when you need a superhero to learn how to grow as a person, unlike Wonder Woman 1984. Ooh, foreshadowing, am I right? I guess it's only fair that we talk about Sivana now, right? This eventually leads to us finally getting a confrontation between Shazam and Sivana. Shazam, of course, treats the entire scenario a little lightly since, you know, it's his first time coming into contact with a supervillain. This leads to funny moments like Shazam punching the hell out of Sivana's nuts. On top of this, they do something that I genuinely don't think the MCU has ever done, which is showcase how cool flying can actually be. Shazam's action scenes, such as when Sivana and Shazam are punching each other in the sky, feel like they actually have superpowers. It feels like there's real strength and weight to these characters. The funniest part though is seeing Shazam figure out he has the power of flying, and then he instantly gets hit by a car on the highway because he didn't get away in time or use the power in time. It's funny bits like this that not only showcase how great Zachary Levi is in this movie, but more importantly how much the DCEU really needed a lighthearted movie. Finally, we get to talk about the most emotional and possibly underrated scene in the entire DCEU. After Billy gets away from Sivana, he goes back to his foster home after running away. He gets yelled at by his foster parents, and all of his foster siblings try to comfort him by telling him where his actual mother is. Turns out his mother reverted back to her maiden name and literally lives 2 stops away from his current foster home. I can't emphasize this enough, but man, this scene genuinely breaks my heart. After all these years, we get the most heartbreaking revelation possible. When Billy lost his mom in the carnival, she saw him when he was with the police. She let go of his hand on purpose because she was 17 and Billy's dad refused to be in the picture. To add to that, apparently her father kicked her out of the house for having Billy as well. Immediately after telling Billy this, who is visibly upset and emotional, she says stupid things like, "But you're good, right? Because I mean, you look real good. It's just not a good time for me right now, Billy." At this moment, it's like you want to yell at this lady because poor Billy has spent his entire childhood trying to find his mother, in and out of multiple foster homes, multiple families, and all this time he thought he'd reunite with his mother so he can finally be happy again, but his mother clearly doesn't want anything to do with him at all. The beauty of this scene though is not only does Billy call out his awful mother by giving her a ball with directions on it, but he says, "I have to go back to my real family." Hearing Billy say that at least puts a small smile on your face because you know that he's at least found somewhere that he can finally call home. This scene right here doesn't get talked about enough, and I can't emphasize how much credit it deserves. After this, Billy ends up running back home because he gets a phone call from the one and only Sivana. Turns out he's keeping his family hostage and Billy needs to save the day. This leads right back to where it all began, the Rock of Eternity. Sivana does his typical villain monologue and Billy genuinely tries to reason with him. That doesn't work, but you know what does? The Batarang. In the middle of Billy and Sivana talking, Billy's foster siblings show up to try and save him. which kind of works considering the fact it buys them enough time to try and run away from Sivana. However, it only buys enough time to reach this area in the Rock of Eternity that has way too many damn doors. It instantly reminded me of the holiday doors in The Nightmare Before Christmas. Shout out to that movie. After trying a bunch of doors, we end up finding out that apparently Billy has the power of teleportation. In order to escape, Billy teleported his entire family to the Gentleman's Club out of all the places possible. This isn't enough to escape from Sivana though, because he's so damn persistent that he ends up finding them anyway and destroying the Gentleman's Club? Not cool, man. This brings us back to where Billy's story started, the carnival. Sivana ends up causing havoc, and in the middle of this, a Ferris wheel begins to break down. Billy in this moment tells his family, if a superhero can't save his family, he's not much of a hero. I can't emphasize how much Billy has been through and grown throughout the entirety of Shazam, but you absolutely love to see it. You love to see him grow and finally see him do something not only for his family, but for himself as well. Freddy's realization that Sivana's just an old man when he releases the 7 deadly sins allows Billy's siblings to use a divide and conquer strategy. Billy and his siblings get caught and he tricks Sivana into giving him his staff. Billy and his siblings put all of their hands on the staff and scream his name. No, they don't scream Shazam like they're supposed to originally, they scream Billy. However, they finally scream Shazam and they all finally get superpowers. Just like Billy, they all grow into adults with differently colored Shazam suits, which finally lets Freddy live his dream of being a superhero. Billy and his siblings work together to defeat Sivana and the 7 deadly sins with their newly granted superpowers. Then they send the 7 deadly sins back to the Rock of Eternity and turn them into statues. Also, they got a lair now, so that's dope too. We get a heartwarming scene of Billy and his entire foster family at a dinner table. Billy leads dinner and finally says that he's home after feeling alone in the world after all these years. Freddy's at school getting bullied by awful kids and his siblings surprise him. They made a special arrangement to have the same lunch period together. Shazam makes a hilarious grand entrance talking about how Freddy taught him to be a dope superhero, and you can't help but laugh because man, Zachary Levi is such a dork in this movie. In a shocking turn of events, Shazam invites another friend that Freddy doesn't know about, and you know who it is? Out of nowhere, it's Superman, dude. The movie ends right then and there with Freddy getting absolutely shocked by Superman's appearance. What a movie! Shazam is a superhero movie that'll always be close to my heart. It's part of the reason why I even started a nerd culture YouTube channel to begin with, and it's also why I have an icon of me drawn as Shazam. Fun fact, my friend Sabrina not only made my icon, but she even drew me as Shazam with a full suit and everything. Shout out to her for that, it's so damn appreciated. Shazam's the one superhero that I genuinely feel like I can see myself as if I were ever a superhero. It's easily a top tier DCEU movie for me, even if I love Wonder Woman too. It tells not only the best story, but it doesn't skip a beat. It doesn't get slowed down or feel corny because even when Zachary Levi is on screen, the whole point is for him to act like that much of a dork. This now brings us down to Birds of Prey and Wonder Woman 1984. The DCEU series is wrapping up pretty quickly, so let's try to wrap this series up so we can move on to new content. As always, I'm your host, Justin, otherwise known as IDontBeatGames, and I'm here to bring that DCEU content right to your monitors. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you really enjoyed this video, hit that sub button. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, write a comment down below. Don't forget to keep it real with peace, love, and positivity.